We get it. After all the frustration, the endless cycles of hoping for a system that actually works, you're ready for something steady. Something that delivers without constant workarounds or headaches. That's why we're excited to introduce the 2025 redesign of the Buzz CRM. Built with you in mind, it's more intuitive, faster, and smarter than ever. Finally, a CRM that sees your worth, streamlines your workflows, and gives you the tools to thrive without needing to prove yourself over and over again. Because you deserve a lifeline after all those outdated platforms. You deserve a system that keeps up with your goals and grows with your success. This isn't just a redesign, it's a revolution. Visit thebuzzcrm.com today. That's thebuzzcrm.com.
Hello and welcome back to the Spiritual Successful Podcast. I am Jenna Zwagil, your host. And first of all, I just want to say welcome back, everybody. I took a little bit of a hiatus from recording for a few weeks, honestly, just trying to get my life sorted. And, it was interesting because as I'm recording all of these episodes, I'm thinking to myself, I need to put this into practice. I need to put my own advice into practice. And of course I have before, which is what led me to where I am today. But it's been a while and I feel like I kind of got myself into a little bit of a comfort zone. And I don't know about y'all, but comfort zones freak me out because I know that when you end up in a comfort zone, it means you're getting ready to stretch again. You're getting ready to be launched out of it in one way, shape, or form. I used to tell people too that I mentor, like, hey, if you ask the universe for a new house, don't be upset when the tornado comes to wreck your current one, because you don't know how it's going to happen. You don't know if your dreams and your goals and everything's going to be delivered on a silver platter. Probably it's not. It's probably going to be messy. It's going to be ugly at some points. And growth is a very messy process. And so I guess, bring everybody back into the fold. I've kind of went through a lot of changes in the last couple of months. But one thing that is staying the same is my professional career. While it is shifting, I'm no longer aligned with the companies that I was with before, but my mission remains. So I'm changing my vehicle, right? My mission still remains. I still have a lot left in me. I'm not ready to retire or sail off to a sunset, and I'm still going to be trudging forward with my mission, and that is to bring really people into their own self-awareness when it comes to wealth, wellness, and wisdom. Like, those are my three main categories I want to focus on. I mean, I'm just going to say like it is. My husband and I decided we're going to get divorced after 10 years together, which is kind of crazy. And, honestly, when you go through something like that, it can definitely show up in your life like an emotional roller coaster. The first night I was by myself, I'm like, okay, it's quiet. It's quiet in my house. I'm not used to it being quiet. Things are different now. And you're entering into this new reality almost. And it's kind of like, man, I have been me plus somebody else for so long. Like, am I going to be okay just being myself? And of course, I knew the answer to that internally. But, when you're face to face with it, you go through the real test, and in my podcast has been a lot about teaching and trying to help people understand themselves. But really, you can listen to the podcast all day, but if you never take the actions in your own life, you never put it into practice, if you ever put it into motion, you're not going to benefit from it. So for me, it was kind of like I had been studying my whole life and now I'm up against the big battle, right? Like, this is the battle at the end of the at the end of the movie or the end of the video game. In order for me to get to the next level, I got to slay this dragon. And so, for me, it was kind of like, maybe it's time for me to spread my own wings. Maybe it's time for me to get out from under the shadows. And maybe it's time for me to really step into my own self-confidence and my own self-love. And I think, what I just kind of realized was, it's not about choosing him or somebody else. It's really all about just choosing myself, and I got to the point where I just wanted to choose myself. And I think 10 years ago, I was a completely different person. I was not successful yet. I was, I guess semi, in the insurance world and things like that. I was making my way, but I really didn't have a lot of direction 10 years ago. And old me is not the same person that I am today. And I have embraced that change. And I know that this is no different for me in my life. So I guess the message I want to bring to people is if you're going through something like that, or even just any big life change, I think it's so important to embrace it with as much grace as possible, because there's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days, there's going to be, buyer's remorse along the way. Like, I definitely feel like I went through that, for a little bit. It was kind of like disbelief. It was something I had never entertained, and my mind was literally expanded to new heights, from all of this. And really just honing in on my own self-confidence, like, you're going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. We're going to be okay. And, it gets complicated, of course, when there's kids and, everything else, businesses, and lots of things have been intertwined over the last 10 years. But I do feel very, very good about the direction that I'm heading in now. And just through my own process, being able to eliminate the noise, suddenly my Facebook and Instagram is just suddenly viral. Like, it's just, bam, everybody's just now showing up. And I feel like so much support and love is coming through that. And that has made me feel like I am not alone. And I really appreciate the people that have shown me love along the way. But for myself, I took a hiatus to eliminate that noise, really to just stick with the signal that I want to be on, to carry the frequency, to hold my vision of what it is I really, really want. And I'll be honest, I think, for some time I wasn't crystal clear. I was still trying to manifest things through a filter, which was the filter of my marriage and my current situation. It was like, I'll do that, but it has to fit into this, right? Everything has to fit through that. Even like religion is kind of the same way in a way. It's like a filter on your mindset. It's like, well, I'll believe this if it fits in line with this, right? But what happens when you remove all the filters? Like, I feel like, honestly, I was just completely, like, just bare bones, all of it. Like, all the filters were gone. And now I was free to just think. I was free to truly expand and really start to think, like, what do I really want? My mentor used to say, Bob Proctor, all the time, what is it you really, really want? Whatever it is that you really want, I can show you how to get that. And so I think being able to find my center has helped me so much, because I went straight back to my trainings. I went straight back to the things that I know to be true and held on to that. And instead of being sad about what's happening, because it's easy to get stuck into a negative vibration when something traumatic's happening in your life. I knew better than that, because I knew I wasn't going to waste my energy on that. I wanted to tap into my creation. I wanted to start creating again and really just letting the energy flow through me. So for me, it was mostly about forgiveness. Forgiveness, not just of, this now new separation that's happening, but just forgiveness for myself, forgiveness for the things that I didn't know back then that I know now, forgiveness, and just allowing myself to shift into a new world and not feeling bad about it. Because I think when you've been together for so long and there are kids, I think, especially, maybe not especially women, but I know for sure for myself, it's like, do we stay for the kids or do we not? That's always kind of, something that you think about when you're in the middle of splitting. But for me, it was like, I can't live in a filtered world anymore. I really need to be my best self, and I need to show up for myself. And if I show up authentically for myself and for my children, I know that that's going to serve them. It's going to serve everybody else as well. And so I'm not advising everyone just go home and get divorced. Like, please don't do that. That's not what I'm saying either. But I just know that when you're out of alignment somewhere, you're sending your signal out to the universe. You're sending out to God or whoever you believe is on the other end of that receiving line, right? You're sending out what it is you really want out there. Well, you're going to get it back, right? And it could be messy. It could be ugly. It could hurt. It could really hurt. But at the end of the day, you're going to bring about your intentions. And, my mentor always said too, like, it's not about the how. You don't have to know how. Well, this is the how manifested. And unfortunately, it wasn't fun, but everything's going to be fine. So if I have to share with you guys today, just some lessons that I've learned just through this own process, it's getting out of your own way, right? Getting away from your self-doubt, because I think when you're with somebody for a long time, you start to think, can I do it by myself? can I stand on my own 2 feet without being able to lean on someone else, you know? And for me, it was like, hell yeah, like, hell yes, I can. And of course I can. And there were times where I feel like I had to tell myself that and I didn't believe it. You know, I had to pop myself up and pick up the pieces along the way. But, I think anything that happens in your life, it's so easy to get sucked into the distraction. In fact, I think most people spend their life in distraction mode. People that don't have a goal are literally drifting through life full of distractions, and then they're taking their attention from one thing to the next and never really focusing on anything. And for me, I'm like, okay, how do I create a positive out of this? There's good in everything. Even in the worst things that are happening to us, there is good in all. And so if you can focus in on that good and focus in on what it is you want to bring into the world, I set my own feelings aside. It's like, okay, this is like an identity shift in a way. Like, I've always been associated with, my husband and the companies that we built together. And now I'm going to have to go branch out and figure out how I'm just going to represent myself, how I'm going to carry myself, and what brands am I going to align with that are going to be full of integrity like I would like them to be, right? Like, what am I going to do next? And so, like I said, for me, I'm focusing on just 3 main categories of what I can bring to the people. And that's what's keeping me going right now. So I'm diving headfirst into work and really allowing myself the freedom to get creative again. And it feels amazing, to be honest. Like, when you are no longer restricted anymore, you get the best ideas, and there's something interesting about when you're in a relationship, and it doesn't matter if, like, how long you've been together, it doesn't matter personalities or anything like that. I feel like anytime you're codependent with somebody, and I don't mean that in a negative way, I just mean when you have someone else to always consider, it creates kind of like a barrier in a way. And sometimes that can be good because you're growing together, but sometimes it's not good if you're growing apart. And, there's like an analogy I used to say on stage, which is like crabs in the crab bucket. You're a little crab trying to get out of the crab bucket, but all the crabs that are under you are trying to pull you down. I have been freed out of the bucket. My little crab legs are finally flying and fleeing into the sand or out of the ocean, and finally can breathe fresh air for the first time again. And, that's confirmation for me, because I'm not going to lie, like, just like going to the gym or accomplishing a new goal, you may get out into this new world and then say, wow, this new world is scary. It's very open here. Where can I hide? Where can I feel safe? Where is my center? Like, I did have those emotions as well, but I also feel like through my own just training in my own mindset, which was, you're never alone. You're never actually alone. You're always supported. You're always part of this loving universe that's literally holding you. And I've been through worse, in the grand scheme of things. Like, I have an encyclopedia of bad experiences in my life, but those are the experiences that really shaped me and made me who I am today. So I have no regrets, and I have, only the most deepest gratitude, honestly, for the last 10 years that I really got to spend with him and creating our companies and doing everything that we did. I really feel like I got like a free education along the way. And I don't know if it was free, because it was definitely cost me my blood, sweat, and tears. It cost me a lot of sleepless nights. It cost me a lot, actually, but I got to learn so much that I know that now I have a strong foundation that I can go take out, in anywhere in the world. So if you're going through a hard time, don't let it stop you, and definitely don't let it distract you. Write down the things that you really want to do. I have another friend that's going through something similar, and her husband just moved out of the house, and she's like, okay, well, now I'm getting a pink comforter. I'm going to paint all the walls whoever I want. She's just like, she's like, I'm free, but it doesn't mean there's not hard times. Of course there is, there's sadness. Sometimes we have to mourn something that's no longer there. I think there's part of that grieving process that happens, whether you like it or not, and I think in those moments you give yourself grace. But, like I said, to focus on the good out of it and to create something special out of it is what we are meant to do. Because truthfully, the third law of the universe, we've talked about this is the law of vibration, right? And energy is always moving. And if you're not intentional with the energy that you are moving forward, then you're sliding backwards, but you're definitely never staying the same. Like nothing stays the same, nothing. Like 50 years from now, like the building that I'm in right now could be completely overtaken by like vines and trees. Like Earth could just literally revolt at any moment and take back in control of all of our weird man-made roads and cars and things that we put together. I don't know, but I do know that nothing stays the same. And so if you're upset about things in your life because they are never staying the same, my message to you is to go with the flow, let go, and see where you end up. Because honestly, take control of the direction you want to be in. Like I said, you can't do nothing, because if you do nothing, you are sliding backwards. And if you go to the gym every single day and you only work out one arm and not the other, one arm is going to be very weak and atrophy is going to set in, and the other arm is going to be very strong. So if you got to take control of the direction that you're going in and intentionally put a plan together for yourself to win. And if you're trapped in your emotions and you're distracted and you can't eat and you can't sleep and you're this or that or in the middle of whatever process, feel that. Yes, definitely go through that. Like, I'm not saying avoid it. You can't avoid it because it's going to manifest one way or the other through your nervous system. Literally, you can create disease that way. We create our own disease that way by internalizing and suppressing. So what I'm saying is feel those emotions completely and then release them and then let them go and let them move through you. And just like when, like you're the observer of your thoughts can come in and go. You don't have to attach to them. You definitely don't have to become emotionally involved with them. I have moments where I'm like just suddenly just angry for no reason. Like I'm just, just mad. And I'm like, I'm not going to attach to that. That's just a passing thought. And I could focus on that and get really upset, or I can just let it go. And so you let the thought clouds just keep passing. You can look at them. You don't have to become attached to them. Bob Proctor used to say too, I wouldn't get emotionally involved with that. Like I wouldn't get emotionally involved with that because, if you are getting emotionally involved with something, that's literally the fast track to creating in your life. So if you're emotionally involved in your fears and your worries and your anger, this or that, or, oh, he's disrespectful, or she's doing this or that, you get trapped in that and you're literally taking your focus off of what you're supposed to be doing here on this earth. We all have a gift within us, like every single one of us. And honestly, sometimes I feel like we think, well, I'm not an egotistical person, so I would never think of myself as that big. Well, it's not about your ego. It's about the spirit within. And the spirit within is seeking further expansion always. Like if you just look outside into nature, everything grows naturally. Everything is always in abundance. We're supposed to be in abundance too. We're supposed to be ever changing and evolving and growing as well. So if God puts it in your heart, or if the universe or whatever you want to call it is putting something on your heart, right? Your emotional mind, basically, of, man, this is something I've really wanted to do forever, but I don't have the faith to pursue it. I don't have the confidence to believe that I can actually do it. We're holding ourselves back. So I challenge you to tap back into that. Tap back into that little fire that you may have suppressed along the way. Because I know for sure, like, my whole message has been igniting the fire within. And yet I have been keeping my fire barely burning. Like there's no way the universe is going to let me go on this podcast without actually putting it to the test. And this was my test for sure. You won't say you want to flame this fire within. Well, guess what? This is going to require you burn to the ashes and rise again like a phoenix. And maybe that's what has to happen. Maybe things have to get burnt down in order for them to be rebuilt. And maybe when we think that, everything's falling apart around us, maybe it's actually falling in place. Maybe it's actually falling in place. You ever go through some hard time, anytime in your life, and you look back on it 5 years later and you're like, wow, if that didn't happen, then this wouldn't have happened. We don't always understand it right in the moment. We don't understand, God's plan. We don't understand what's going to happen in the middle of it. But if you are in control of the vision you hold for your future, you will get there eventually, even through tough times. In fact, you won't even look at the tough times. We in our company, we've been through ups and downs. We've been through lots of sales and then lots of not sales, right? So like the roller coaster of entrepreneurship. And even during the hard times, it was like, no, we're just focused on the goal. We're focused on the goal. Like if we start focusing on the problem, then we're just going to get more problems. And, my mentor used to say, there's no such thing as problems. Really, problems are only just the opposite of knowledge. It's just a lack of understanding. Lack of understanding or ignorance is the only problem we ever actually have. Ignorance is the only problem we ever have. And so if you're looking at your life, well, I have a real problem. I can't pay my rent. I have a real problem. I'm going through this. I have a real problem. I'm sick or whatever. If there is a problem, then that means there has to be a solution. That's the law of polarity. There's hot and there's cold. There's inside, there's out. There's problems and there's solutions. It can't be one without the other. There's cause and effect. People say, oh, but you're lucky. No, luck is just something that we describe an unknown cause for a known effect, right? And so, like, if you have a problem in your life or it feels like a problem in your life, it's actually not a problem. It's just something that you have to solve in order to get to the next version of yourself. And I think the deepest thing that I've really realized is that the new version of myself cost me the old one. It cost me the old one. And I didn't even think the old one was that bad. But apparently, I have to keep going. I have to keep growing. And I have to shed the layers that no longer serve me. And sometimes that's freaking scary. It is. We call that the terror barrier, breaking through, because you're literally moving from one frequency to another. There's definitely a period of weirdness that happens in there. But if you go backwards into comfort, you are doing yourself a disservice. Get the hell out of your comfort zone, because that's the only way that you're going to become successful in any undertaking. You go to the gym, you get sore. Well, if you stay home the next day because you're sore, you're going back into your comfort zone. And there's nothing to be gained out of being comfortable, ever. In fact, I am uncomfortable when I am comfortable. I know that I'm about to wreck some shit in my life if I'm comfortable, like for real. Like it is too good. That means something's about to go down. And I don't know if that's just my own psychology or what, but I really just feel like if I'm not being challenged and I'm not being pushed and I'm not looking for the next mountain to climb, then I'm not doing myself any good and I'm not doing anybody else any good either, because the gifts that we have are within us, and our job is to develop those gifts, right? Or to hone in on those gifts and to take serious look at those gifts and develop them into what we're supposed to become. And if you could just delete the self-doubt, the biggest thing that people have that I have dealt with myself is just allowing myself to be awesome. Like just allow yourself to be awesome. Like get rid of the self-doubt. Allow yourself to be the version of yourself you want to be. We only hold ourselves back. What I mean by that is, you want to be XYZ. And if it seems out of reach, it's not. You just literally have to visualize it to the point where you feel like you're already there. You feel like you're already there, it's going to be coming into your life fast. And here's the thing. Time doesn't give a shit. Time doesn't even exist. Time is just a construct that we invented. So how fast can you reach your goals? Very, very fast. As soon as you get yourself out of the way, as soon as you stop telling yourself you can't, as soon as you stop saying limiting things about yourself, that's when things start to happen. That's when things start to really start moving and shaking in your life. And I know for me, this is not my first tornado that I've had to endure. And I just understand at this point that no matter what tornado's life throws at me, I know it's because something beautiful and bigger and more exciting and more fulfilling and more in alignment with where I'm going is on the way. So I want to leave you guys with that today. And I hope that you can feel what I'm trying to get across, because honestly, it's not the end. The things that hit us upside the head in life is not the end. It's just the beginning. So thank you guys for hopping on, and I will see you on our next episode.
We get it. After all the frustration, the endless cycles of hoping for a system that actually works, you're ready for something steady. something that delivers without constant workarounds or headaches. That's why we're excited to introduce the 2025 redesign of the Buzz CRM. Built with you in mind, it's more intuitive, faster, and smarter than ever. Finally, a CRM that sees your worth, streamlines your workflows, and gives you the tools to thrive without needing to prove yourself over and over again. Because you deserve a lifeline after all those outdated platforms. You deserve a system that keeps up with your goals and grows with your success. This isn't just a redesign, it's a revolution. Visit thebuzzcrm.com today. That's thebuzzcrm.com.